Hello folks, with the next World of Warcraft major patch just a few days away as this video goes live, it's time for the traditional round of developer interviews. This particular round did have some hope to offer for healers, albeit in the longer term. I'm going to do a quick roundup of what was the most interesting discoveries from some of the interviews. I won't be covering everything, and I do encourage you to watch them in full. I'll put links in the description down below. First up in the roster was an interview with senior rewards designer Patrick Scarborough, otherwise known as Scarizard, played by Dratnos and Recurrence Maximum. This interview was most notable for Patrick's obvious enthusiasm for both the game and the role he plays in bringing it to us. Watching Maximum and Dratnos sitting in stunned silence at Patrick's ability to yap endlessly about his work was a joy to see. There wasn't really any new information about the game, but it did provide a useful insight into how the developers think about rewards. For example, the developers see trinkets as less of just a single item for every player and more of a journey where we may start out with some less optimal trinkets before finally winning that best trinket that everyone wants later in the season. This is an interesting way to think about rewards, but I'm not exactly sure it works in practice. Given the effects of RNG and how rarely we see trinkets in the vault, I'm sure I'm not the only one that ends up only ever seeing 1 or 2 trinkets per slot in most seasons. Patrick also shared that the recent removal of dinars from the renown track was due to the team wanting to have a bit more flexibility in when they make the dinars available, noting that it's harder to move things about in a renown track post-launch. They also see the renown track longer term as a way to give them a lot more flexibility in how they can introduce rewards into raiding. Unfortunately, there were no new updates on what the new source for the dinars will be, so I guess we'll still have to wait a bit to find out. Associate Game Director Morgan Day has also spent some time in the interview round, with interviews with Countdown to Classic, which, despite the name of the channel, was entirely about retail, and along with Associate Encounter designer Katarina Yippets with the Raider.io team. Morgan revealed that he's been doing quite a bit of healing lately and is very familiar with some of the concerns of healers, particularly what he described as the rubber banding of health bars, which are leaving healers feeling more like they're executing a DPS-style rotation than more of what I guess would be a deliberate approach to healing. Morgan revealed that the team are already working to slowly move healing away from this over time, but they feel that making changes too quickly could lead to a bit of a feeling of whiplash for players, so those improvements for healing are likely to be something that we'll see being rolled out gradually over multiple seasons, rather than something that we can expect to see right now in Season 2. When asked about Mythic Plus Season 1, Morgan shared that he considers the new affix system to have been a success, but he also described the issues with early Mythic Plus progression and rewards as being areas where the team missed the mark. These are areas that the team have been addressing. For example, they're buffing the gear in the lower level keys, and there are also the improvements to crest acquisition that have already gone live in-game. This was a theme that was continued in the Raider.io interview, where the team discussed that the inclusion of Challenger's Peril and the positioning of the Tyrannicon fortified affixes had in their view led to there being too many overly large steps in the mid-range progression, and that the main reason for removing Challenger's Peril at those lower levels of keys is to try and make the progression experience feel a bit better, especially for pugs. If you're a fan of delves, you may be curious about how delves have been going. The lack of any integration with the WoW Armory and Warcraft logs means that it's much harder for us as a community to get a handle on the participation than it is for raiding in Mythic Plus. Morgan, of course, was not willing to share any official numbers, but he did say that it has been very popular and that they're very happy with the performance of those delves. This sentiment was also expressed in an interview with Corey Missildine, where senior game designer Sean McCann and lead props artist Jordan Power shared that there had been a mixture of both surprise and relief at the positive reception to delves. In a couple of the interviews, the question about the longer-term future of delves was raised, with both groups of interviewees being quite cagey about discussing the post-expansion future of delves, but we did get a firm assurance that delves will continue to be a major feature at least through to the end of the War Within. My take on this is that it is understandable that the team will want to have evidence of player responses beyond a single season before they'll be comfortable to formally announce that we will see delves in future expansion. But given their obvious happiness at the responses so far, it would be a massive surprise to me if they are not by now planning the follow-up to delves in the Midnight expansion. Certainly, whenever I do a delve, I always see several other players at the entrances to those delves, even now at the end of the season, which, given how empty the zones usually feel this late on, I think that's a fairly strong sign that delves are still getting a lot of attention from the player base. For me personally, I have been enjoying delves a lot. They are certainly working a lot better for me than the previous attempts in this space like Island Expositions or Torghast. So it's good to hear that Blizzard are happy with them, and I am keeping my fingers crossed that this does translate into a long-term future for this feature that goes well beyond the War Within and even beyond Midnight. We did, however, get one piece of concrete news, which is the confirmation that Undercoins are going to be reset going into Season 2. While Undercoin had been reset on the PTR, as it's not really a player power currency, there had still been quite a bit of residual doubt if this reset would carry forward into live, and that has now been dispelled. Unfortunately, none of the interviewers thought to ask the question that's been at the front of my mind, which is if the seasonal currency reset is going to be at the start of the patch this coming week, as happened for the Dragonflight Season 2, Season 3 transition, or if that reset will instead happen at the start of Season 2 on the 4th of March, which has been the case for some other seasons in the past. For now, I'm still going to be planning on the assumption that the reset does happen this week and looking to get my currencies spent before that. On the very thorny subject of add-ons, Morgan didn't have a lot to share beyond reiterating the team's desire to ensure that the game can be played and enjoyed successfully with zero add-ons. But he did acknowledge that there are still areas where players do still need to turn to external tools or resources like Wowhead, and he went on to reveal that the ability to effectively play our classes without guides is something that's very much on the radar, and we can expect to hear something concrete about this in the not too distant future. One of the major issues for the more competitive end of the player base in Mythic Plus Season 1 has been the use or misuse of group buffs in dungeons, with players finding ways to import buffs from follow dungeons, story mode, and even holiday events into Mythic Plus runs, leading to questions and accusations about potential exploits, and at least some high-level players questioning the competitive integrity of the high-end leaderboards. In the Raider.io interview, Morgan confirmed that this is a bug and that their team are currently working to fix it before Season 2 launches. The apparent lack of any consequences for players who use these buffs to push to the top level is kinda interesting to me. While Blizzard's response to perceived exploits in Mythic Plus has never been super consistent, in the past we'd have expected to have seen something like this result in faster fixes and disallowing runs, if not issuing suspensions. There's always a fine line between coming down hard on players who knew full well that they are doing something they should not be doing, and recognising that it's not the player's fault that bugs like this are making it into live, and that the developers should just take the hit on it. But it is starting to appear that Blizzard may be moving more towards the latter approach. As well as the interview round, the dev team have also shared a making of / lessons learned summary from the recent Felcycle secret event, which for me was one of the main highlights of the patch 11.05 anniversary event. In this update, which I have again shared in the description, the developers revealed that they wanted to make this secret more visible to the wider player base, but that they found that this led to some players getting into the event without fully understanding all that was involved. The update also revealed that the very long-held player belief that the Isle of Watchers in Azuna could potentially be hosting another undiscovered game secret just isn't correct. The various odd things that are in the island were, until the Felcycle event was launched, just little flavoursome oddities. However, it was this rumour that inspired the team to set part of the Felcycle event in that location. If you enjoyed the event or are a fan of secrets in World of Warcraft generally, it's definitely a good read, and it's left me with the strong impression that more secrets are planned for the future, which I'm certainly looking forward to if it turns out to be the case. This coming week will of course see the launch of patch 11.10 and the opening up of the new goblin-themed Undermine dungeon and the new dynamic ground travel system Drive. Although, as is the norm for the new season, we are not getting the new raid or Mythic Plus and Delve seasons until the following week, as well as all the usual seasonal titles and rewards that are going away when the new season ends. This coming reset is going to see the end of the current Plunderstorm and Turbulent Timeways events. So if you haven't got all of the rewards you want from either of those events yet, you may want to drop by in the next day or two to get them wrapped up. For the Raiders and Mythic Plus folks who are still chasing titles like Ahead of the Curve or Cutting Edge, you've still got one more week though. Overall, I'm looking forward to the launch of the new patch. Undermine's Goblin theme is creating a vibe which very much reminds me of Mechagon. The team are though taking a bit of a risk with such a strong vibe. But overall for me, it is one that I expect will land quite well for a lot of people, albeit I do wonder if the greeny-yellow colour palette could perhaps become a bit wearing after a month or two. That is though, I think, something that only time will tell. Many of the changes to Mythic Plus, both announced and discovered in the PTR, do seem to be directly addressing the major causes of player discontent with Season 1. And I'm pretty confident that this season is going to feel a lot better, especially for tanks and DPS. I do though have one concern about the level of AoE healer checks, and it's very likely that we're going to see some hefty nerfs for these either before the season goes live or very early into the season. I'm just keeping my fingers crossed that this is not going to translate into a healer shortage in LFG similar to Season 1's tank shortage. For Raiders, it's great to see the team starting to shake things up a bit with a new Renown track. It's not a groundbreaking change, but it does show that Blizzard know that raiding is getting maybe a little stale, and I'm hopeful that this is just the start of a process to inject a bit more excitement into the raiding scene. That said, I do not think that this season is going to address the yawning gap between heroic and mythic difficulty. I would have liked to have seen some signs that this is also on Blizzard's radar, as there is, I think, a need to find more ways to get folks to enter or return to mythic raiding to help ensure its longer term future. But what about all of you? What are you most excited about for the new patch? Are you planning to live the high life on the roads of Undermine, or just counting the hours until the raid opens? Let me know in the comments down below. Just before I wrap up, for any of my viewers in Canada and especially in Toronto, the first wave of tickets for the next leg of the 30th anniversary event tour went live on Tuesday. This event takes place in the Rec Room in Toronto, starting at 3:30 PM Eastern Time, and will include signing opportunities with executive producer Holly Longdale and design director Tina Wang, along with a bunch of other attractions. The first round of tickets, unfortunately, are already sold out. But if this event follows the same pattern as the UK event, there's likely to be further waves of tickets in coming weeks. And you'll want to watch out for those when they go live, because they don't seem to last long before they sell out. If you found this update useful, then hit that like icon. And if you want to support my channel, the best way to do that is to hit the subscribe button right now before you forget. And also be sure to hit that bell icon to get notified when my videos go live. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.